Yeah.
And the kid reaches out for like some sex lollipop, and I'm like, like
A sex lollipop. Welcome to Behind the Sins, presented by CinemaSins.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, where Danae and Jonathan have pushed Aaron out of the studio forever. It's just us today. Well, actually, Barrett's here too. Say hi, Barrett.
Hello.
I am supposed to probably be doing the introduction to this podcast, and I'm probably supposed to do it some way like Aaron does it, but I am not because I don't have his script. So this is a podcast from the quote-unquote B team of the CinemaSins universe. In this show, we go over all of the videos that were released in the Sinsverse this week, or actually, I guess last week. Talk about them. We also have several segments that you may enjoy or you may not enjoy. You can tell us all about it.
Did we have a survey about that? Don't we have percentages?
We actually do.
Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. All right, maybe fuck off. All right.
Maybe just leave us alone. I don't know. I don't do an Italian accent.
Barrett's got the Irishman stuck in his head still.
Maybe go fuck yourself.
He's gonna be talking like Pesci the whole episode.
Oh my god, that would be great. We start off with the SinSide Scoop. We're going to be looking at all of the videos released this week. We also go over fun stories of things that we looked up while we were sending them. We get to your comments and feedback and questions, and then talk a little bit more about other things going on in our lives that we interact with that you might be able to enjoy. And that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to do it so fast. Guys, today is going to be the shortest podcast ever. Are you excited about that?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay, we're just going to skip over everything and talk about Endgame. Here we go. No, we're going to talk about Rick and Morty and all that good stuff. But first, hello. How are you guys doing? How is your life? We have Barrett. And Barrett, what a good week for you to be on the show because
he wrote everything, I think, except for like maybe one script.
Yeah, I did.
I think Rick and Morty's the only thing you're not on.
Yeah, Rick and Morty is such a weird thing because I'm watching the videos that we do. And they're written mostly, I think, by Chris and Aaron with Danae in there sometimes too. I've only rarely seen the show. I enjoy the show. I enjoy the videos, but for whatever reason, I've just never really gotten into that cult of Rick and Morty. But otherwise, yeah, we had a very eclectic mix last week.
Yeah, you didn't write on two of them. You wrote on, we're going to talk about Justin Timberlake, Christmas Carol, and Avengers Endgame, and you wrote on all of those. Mm-hmm. So it's just the perfect time for Aaron to be unavailable.
Yeah, and he oversaw OJ and wrote quite a bit of that one. So
that's true. You saved the day on OJ, but we'll get to that story, I guess, and just in a little, in a little bit. Hey, I did before we actually start talking about the minutia and the details, unless you guys have stories to share or whatever. I also wanted to mention that first of all, our survey did wrap up. We had 241 people respond. Woo. Isn't that exciting?
That's a lot of people.
I sent out our very first newsletter. So if you signed up for the newsletter, check your spam folder if you didn't see it already. There's some information in there about some upcoming things you're going to want to know about. And also, we have our official Behind the Sins Twitter feed now. Or it's not really a feed, I guess. We have a Twitter handle is probably there. And for some reason, I'm put in charge of it. So for those of you who went and were like, who's in charge of this? It's me.
Breaking into that new application, twitter.com.
It's www.
HTTP.
Yeah.
It was really funny too, you having conversations with yourself, because that's when CinemaSins and Music Video Sins used to get accused of that all the time, that it was just Jeremy talking to Jeremy. Right? Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah. We still get that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, my God. That's hilarious. I accidentaled myself into just perpetuating more just BS, I guess. Oopsie.
Yeah.
So you can follow us now. We have our very own Twitter handle. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's CinemaSins BTS, because apparently BTS is a really popular pop band.
What?
And there's also lots of podcasts out there. So all of the little Twitter handles we tried to find, not available. So we went with CinemaSins BTS. if you're on Twitter.
What were the other? I guess there was
follow.
probably a behind the scenes podcast or something like that.
Yeah, there was Behind the Sins gone. Behind the Sins or BTS Pod gone. Just any kind of iteration that we could think of was
because there
available.
actually is. There's a I don't even know if it's. I remember when I was looking up Behind the Sins at one point when I was trying to search for us. There's like a religious podcast that has a similar title. I'm not kidding. I don't know if it was still actually active, but it was on iTunes or whatever that's called now.
It's the worst when you have an active, like for us, we have an active show, and one of the Twitter handles is Behind the Sins, and that person hasn't used it since like 2011, and you're like, and they don't have a DM, so I can't message him and say, hey, could you please let us have it?
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's fine. Barrett calmed me down.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Everything is fine.
Oh my God, Jonathan, you're going to love this. I swear to God, we're going to start the show. And again, it's going to be the shortest one ever. I promise.
Oh, we're good.
We have, Barrett and I meet once a week to talk about all of the CinemaSins minutia.
Yeah, talk crap about us behind our backs. I got you.
That's what we do.
Yep.
And this last week, I introduced a new part of our admin meeting called Calm Danae Down Time, where I got to just sort of panic about stuff, and then his whole really responsibility was to just calm me down. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
nice.
And you are nice and calm. I just sing the Taylor Swift song to her.
That's right.
You need to calm
really
down.
It was wonderful. It made me feel so much better.
Well, we had me and you, and I guess Aaron got involved in that whole email about an upcoming TV Send script where there was a couple of episodes, and we were all a little confused about what we were supposed to be doing.
Oh my gosh, I get so wound up. I really do.
It was all good. It was all good.
Danae calm down time.
You need to just stop.
Stop.
Can you just not?
Oh my God, you're gonna get this copyrighted. Barrett, stop it. We're not gonna be able to release this episode.
I cannot wait for us to get to Suit and Tie. Just to hear more of your thoughts on. Oh no. Well, let's go ahead and get started with the SinSide Scoop officially.
What's he building in there?
I've got a secret. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
This is a true story.
All right, so we're going to take a look at the videos from this week, the process of sending them, and how we felt about the show or the movie in general. And first up from TV Sins was Rick and Morty, Me Seek and Destroy. This was an Atkinson Dicer, who are both not here. So
yeah, the one I wrote on we talked about last week, so sorry.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, why even talk about it?
Have either one of you seen you've seen the episode, Danae, but it's been a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a while. This is one I did have some memories of.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, and that's always nice whenever I'm like, oh, I did watch this. Oh, I do remember this. So
have you seen this one, Barrett?
No, I haven't. I do have a question about the video, but that probably comes later on, right?
No, go ahead.
Who did the previously on TV Sins for this one?
I actually had that written down as one of my. What was that one? That was the the Christmas Vacation. I believe that was Chris, because that was from.
Because you guys have like listeners and viewers and fans and stuff like that submit their previously on, right?
Oh, you're talking about the voice.
Are you talking about the person who speaks it, or
the person who speaks it? Yes.
Yeah, I have no idea. Aaron has all those files, so.
Okay, it sounds like Chris, but it sounds like Chris doing a voice.
Oh, that's amazing.
I think
so
that's
I
one
didn't
that
know
was
if that was the
sent
case.
in, though, but yeah, I really don't know. Maybe they listen to the show and they can tell us.
You know what? This is a good. We need to dig into this because it's kind of why we exist. But maybe you guys actually know: are these members' voices?
It's you know what? It's
know.
been so long since we did this. I believe it was Patreon members that Aaron asked.
Yeah.
But like all of us did
so
them,
cool. And
then there is some people from Made In that have also done them. So at this point,
I really think it's nice.
Yeah, at this point, I don't even know.
You don't even know.
And I recognize like Chris and Barrett and Aaron's voices. I don't think Jeremy did one, but maybe.
Yeah, recognize his voice.
Huh? I would definitely recognize his
Jeremy's
voice, but I think
voice.
that's why he didn't do one.
He does enough vocal
but,
work.
Yeah, but as far as like the members and the made in, I don't know. It all.
Well, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, it was a great idea.
Just finding ways to make sure that our Patreon members can kind of have their fingerprint on what we do.
Yeah, we can find out from Aaron. I don't know. Aaron might even still be taking them. I'm not sure.
Aaron, why aren't you here?
Because he sends them to made in. So
I'm technically in the studio, which is technically in his house, and so I just yelled up to the ceiling.
I thought it
as if
was
he's gonna
funny.
Come down.
I thought it was funny that we had a Christmas Vacation outtake though, for no reason at all. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. What do you guys think about the video? We have some notes from Chris on the
Yes.
process of sending them, but if you guys have any other thoughts about before we jump into that.
Well, I just think the episode in general, like I started watching the show because we're doing all these videos, and I just thought this episode was really good, except for that weird scene with the sexual assault.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some parts about this show that get a little, and I think we're supposed to be uncomfortable. This is just, it's kind of like how the type of humor, there's certain types of humor that are just going to be uncomfortable. And you think like, oh, they're not going to go there. And then they kind of skirt on it, or they do. And, it doesn't always feel great. So, but I don't know. So, Barrett, did you say that you watch Rick and Morty at all, or just the videos?
Watch the videos, and I've seen probably 5 or 6 Rick and Morty episodes, and like I said, I've enjoyed all of them. But I've never like gotten into it. It's the same thing with BoJack Horseman, actually. Which I hear is a spectacular show, and I've seen and I've enjoyed, but I just haven't like committed myself.
You watch Big Mouth though, right?
Do what?
You watch Big Mouth though, right? Because I think you introduced me to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you
that's
if you like Big
hilarious.
Mouth, you'd like Rick and Morty.
They're 100% tied together. 100%. Chris said that this was a thank you. I try. He said that it was a really fun episode, but the weirdness of Jerry going back home from the golf course to get golf lessons from the Meeseeks was a convenience to let him know that Beth was mad at him. So like stuff like that kind of stood out to him as he was sending it. And he also made a note and also who plays golf in their house. And that reminded me of something from a long time ago. I actually knew people that love to play, but they did like the putt golf in their house all the time. There was a bachelor's. They had no furniture in their living room. It was just like a beanbag in the corner, and then they had golf clubs, and they just loved to like putt around their living room.
Well, that was like that was also like an 80s and maybe even 90s like cliche with like big CEO wigs like in their offices and movies. They'd always be like talking on the phone, and they'd be hitting a golf ball into like a little putting thing that they'd have in the office.
Well, they still sell those weird toy stocking stuffer type things at like Kohl's or whatever that are those golf ball receivers where you kind of try to get them up the ramp and into the hole or whatever for your office. I've never gotten that.
Yeah, Kohl's is like a slightly classier Spencer Gifts and Toys.
Is it?
Yeah.
Spencer's. Oh my God.
God damn. By the way, Spencer Gifts. I just I went to a mall recently, and they still exist. Spencer Gifts.
Yeah, we have one out here.
And I forgot how fucking pervy that store is.
Well, I think it's gotten.
It took a turn.
I think it's gotten pervier because I feel like they've added like a sex toy section that wasn't there when we were kids.
No. And I went in, I had the same thing happen to me, Barrett. I went into a Spencer's Spencer's Gifts, and it used to be gag gifts.
Yeah.
Just goofy stuff and silly t-shirts, and all of a sudden I'm looking at like sex toys and edible panties, and I'm thinking, wait a second, and I had brought a child in with me.
Yeah.
And the kid reaches out for like some sex lollipop, and I'm like,
A sex lollipop. I mean, you could have called it a penis, but you called it a sex lollipop.
Well, that's what I told her it was. I didn't say the sex part. I said it was a lollipop, and we ran.
The flavor of sex and a lollipop.
No. Oh, shit.
God, we talked about sex cleanup last week. Now
That's right. And now we're talking about salty lollipops.
So Rick and Morty.
Anyway. Chris also said that it was a lot of fun to hunt down the sins about Jerry opening and closing the door when he leaves the Meeseeks to go have dinner with Beth, because there was the continuity errors and the plot holes that it created, which we can all relate as writers. It's really fun when a show does something and you just sort of discover this gold mine of sins.
Yeah.
Well, and I think shows like this that are really concentrating on just being like outlandish with their humor. I don't think stuff like that is factoring into, what they need to, I don't think they're thinking about things like him going outside as opposed to going upstairs and changing. But then we get to pick on that. So it works out well for us.
We
Yeah,
do.
especially with like what he noticed with the shirts changing and then the Meeseeks knowing magically where to go to find him, and he kind of references all of that. So this was a fun one for him to. I think it's fun for Chris in general to be on this Rick and Morty series. Since
It is,
he's
and I'm
so
really
familiar
glad.
with
I
this
mean,
stuff.
we were all like me, him, and Aaron, all three of us going into TV Sins. We were all a little lenient about really trying to do animated stuff, and we did the Simpsons early on. But we just thought the animated shows, since they kind of just poke fun at themselves, it would be a little hard to send them. But then we did that animation month with Archer and Family Guy, and realized that not only could we do it, but people really liked them. So I'm really glad that worked out, because I don't know that we would have tried Rick and Morty if we hadn't done that first. So and these are become very popular. So in fact, when we released the next one, there was quite a few comments about, wait, where's Rick and Morty?
Yeah.
Whereas when we've done these like Friends and Game of Thrones runs, people are like, okay, are we done yet?
We'll just keep pushing until someone says that, because there is an element of our job of trolling you. That's just part of what we like
and
to
there
do.
will be more Rick and Morty, just so people know. So at least
calm
through
down.
the end of the year, there'll be a few more. So
Calm down. Well, was
You
there
need to calm
anything
down.
anything specific about this particular video that you wanted to point out or reference before we go on to our
what about?
next
I don't think you said
season?
anything, have you?
I'm not going to say anything at all.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to get myself in trouble.
Well, then I
See?
definitely want you to say something. So
I'm already in trouble. No, I'm good. I'm good. I mean, I kind of feel like I'm a little bit of a broken record sometimes with Rick and Morty. So I think, if you listen to the last couple episodes, you probably have a good idea of what I guess last episode, because the one before that was These Chips Are Good. And there's nothing in there about Rick and Morty at all.
But we talked about it the next one, though. So
Yeah.
I like that we had Rick rolling as a sin.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
A Gymnasium of Lies was another little bit that I enjoyed. And the idea that the other thing that Chris brought up, I don't know if it was Chris or Aaron, but one of them brought up was, why wouldn't Rick use the Meeseeks on his adventures with Morty?
Yeah.
Like, if he had access to that, why wouldn't he be using them to help him?
There's a couple of things that my brain did this week when I was watching the videos. I did it with Endgame, which we're going to get to here in a second. But on this too, I just sort of shut the part of my brain off that tries to figure anything out on these to enjoy it. Because if you start asking questions, it all just kind of falls apart.
But that's what we do, Janae.
Oh, right. That is what we do. Gotcha.
No, I know what you're saying.
Let's go on to American Crime Story, People versus O.J. Simpson. This was Hughes, Watkins, and Share jumping in
And
to save the
Danae's
day.
favorite script ever. So why don't you talk about that?
Oh no! You want me to start? I was hoping Barrett would start.
All right, let's let Barrett start.
Let's hear from Barrett on what was your experience behind the scenes as we started to send this this script. Like, maybe you got a message from me. Maybe maybe there was some concerns.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So I watched this show in real time.
Me too.
And I can't really say that I enjoyed it, but it was very watchable.
I think it's a pretty interesting show. I think it's
the source material is obviously very engrossing, because this case has been, front and center in the public consciousness for the last 25 years or so. Obviously the main thing here is that we don't want to send that source material. You want to send this show in particular for being, as it is, very over the top, very just kind of all these imitations and makeup and costumes and shit like that, and it's such a garbled mess that you can't look away from. So that was the impetus in picking the show in particular, given the anthology thing. And so when I went to do my thing, which I typically do before I see anything that you guys have done, I did that essentially, like send the show for being the show.
That's what I tried to do as well.
Yeah. And so we kind of had to like merge those three streams, like the Ghostbusters, and make sure that we were camping on the camp.
You know, I think what was hard for me about this, because I didn't watch the show when it was on, when it was available, you know, as it was being released and there was a lot of excitement about it. I wasn't one of the people that was just jumping in and watching it too. And so this was my first experience with it. And so I'm going on with like these sin goggles, you know, ready to jump in and find things. And then it was so hard for me. And, you know, this is where I'm really thankful for the team. Like, I immediately realized I was having not just writer's block and not just, you know, like I missing something or whatever, or just having a hard time on a script. I was having a really hard time sinning this show because these are real people and this is a really horrible tragedy, and I could not find my groove. And so I reached out to the team through our communications, you know, that we do. Like, I sent some emails. I went on Slack and was like, guys, I'm struggling. If you have any advice for me, let me know. And immediately Jonathan and Barrett reached out and was like, try to go at it from like this angle. Here's some advice. And, you know, good luck.
No, it happens. It happens all the time.
I kind of in my mind just assumed, because I had just been watching American Horror Story, and, you know, this is very Ryan Murphy, but it is still, it's probably the best thing he's ever done. At least over the last like 6 or 7 years. So yeah. it wasn't quite as crazy as like I remembered in my head. At least the pilot wasn't. But that was still, that was kind of the approach I thought we had to take.
Yeah, and I think Barrett, you had some kind of similar thoughts too. In fact, you both really kind of helped me out from very similar perspectives. What were some of the thoughts you had whenever I was reaching out to you, Barrett?
Oh, it happens all the time. It used to happen quite a bit in music video sins, where Chris and I were writing with each other, and some with Jonathan too, at least on my part, where it's hard because music videos are so condensed, and sometimes there's deeper meaning that you don't even get to until later on. You really have to pick an angle. You can't just like go straight on. Sometimes you have to be oblique about it and send something about the video rather than the video itself. And that's the similar thing to what we're doing here, is sending the show for being the show, sending David Schwimmer for being there, and John Travolta for having those eyebrows. Yeah. So yeah, and like Cuba Gooding Jr.'s accent and shit like that. You know, like that's the stuff that we have to grab onto. Yeah, but it does happen all the time.
When we did the script combination, I sent my script to Jonathan. He did the combine, and then we sent that on to Barrett. And Barrett added a lot of extra sins into the script that really kind of helped, I think, because we didn't have Jonathan and I loved what we did, obviously, but like when you added in your perspective, you specifically went and pointed out the grossness of the situation. And that was so needed because it was missing from that script, just us really telling the audience, like, we're not poking fun at what happened. We're poking fun at a show, and we didn't have anything in that script at that point in time. And that really, to me, made everything feel better. Because the last thing we want to do is come across as, you know, crass assholes in the wrong way. Like, crass assholes fun is one thing, but
crass holes.
Crassholes, yeah.
It's like craisins.
Well, and it was kind of like when we made those comments, you know, we wrote that sin for the last American Horror Story about Kathy Bates' character, Kathy Bates' character was based on a real person, but that show wasn't.
Right.
And so we didn't tackle that part of it, and then we did have people make some comments about, you know, well, that was a real person, and she really did do these things. But
right. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to be explicit about it. Sometimes you know, and you don't want to acknowledge it because, you know, it's part of the fun. And then sometimes when it comes to something like this arena, you do have to come out and say, fuck you guys. We're not not fuck you guys, but like, we're not going after the actual material. You know.
Exactly. And that really helped me a lot. You know, I was able to focus on, you know, the closet and the baby shower and milk being left out instead of...
You actually did, though. You wrote some sins around, and we kept a couple of them in, where you wrote some sins around, like, the discovering of the body and stuff like that, which I thought you would avoid. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I did try to go into that area, and you know, I think it was like you
tackled a lot about the investigation and like how they were terrible cops, which hopefully they probably were in real life too, but they definitely did not present them very well in this show.
Right.
The way they went about doing the parking a mile from the house and not understanding that somebody might not be home because there's a car there.
I think Barrett, you had the walking from a mile away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I don't remember who. There was a couple of other ones that were specifically. Oh, the one that I really appreciated was when they were talking about the prosecuting team was talking about OJ, and then at the very end of the conversation, the guy is like, "Oh, he's been arrested for beating his wife." It's like I could not find a way to talk about that because I was so triggered.
But yeah, it's like, why would you bring that up
glad
first?
It was there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We think he may have violently murdered his wife. Well, probably shouldn't bring up that he's got a prior about beating her before, you know.
And like, how wouldn't they already know that? And but I will say for the show, like, I'm overall, like, from start to finish, this is because that's the thing about Murphy is like he's so over the top, and usually by about the third or fourth episode of whatever show you're watching for that season, he's just gone completely crazy. I think this is one of his few where from beginning to end it actually kind of worked. I think there's some really good performances in here. Is it Courtney B. Vance?
Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah, it's Courtney B. Vance and Sterling K. Brown.
Sterling K. Brown, yeah. Sterling K. Brown is excellent. Schwimmer's actually not that bad. This is probably one of Schwimmer's better performances. I don't know what that means, but...
So you guys watched the whole thing from beginning to end, and you both had this interesting perspective that you shared with me separately as I was going through my writing panic. And then as you started to write yourself, you realized that the pilot was a little more muted, and that as the show went on, it did get a little wackier, and it might have been easier to find some sins there.
Once they get into like the trial and like, you know, him trying on the glove and, Marsha having to, you know, change her hairstyle, which actually happened.
Yeah, that's actually something that happened.
Which is terrible. But that's why, because I even said when we had that sin in there about her 90s perm or whatever, and I was even like, is this too insensitive? Because she actually did, because of public consensus about how bad she got made fun of so much, she changed her hairstyle, which is awful.
She actually got out of law completely.
Well, yeah, she's a best-selling author.
Yeah,
she started writing like crime fiction.
She felt like she let America down, and she just wanted to just raise her kids and kind of leave the drama behind. So
seems like a really, really cool person. My wife's a huge fan of hers.
Well, was there anything about the show like that we didn't get to sin that you would want to kind of bring up, and then maybe we can transition to talk about any specific sins you guys liked from the video? I mean, I think we tackled it pretty well. I can't think of anything we really left out. Yeah.
Okay. I got a beef right now.
Do it.
Schwimmer. No, I disagree with you about the Schwimmer.
Okay.
Schwimmer is absolutely abhorrent in this show. And maybe that's on purpose. Maybe that's how Robert Kardashian was, calling OJ juice over and over and over again. He's not the juice anymore. It's just, it was absolutely grating. He's this puppy dog searching for his owner, and he's trying to get with OJ and the juice like as much as possible. Like, it was the worst parts of Ross being a hangdog puppy whatever in Friends.
I will say, just as the series
distilled
as a whole,
into
though, there was some stuff later on where he's coming to grips with the fact that his friend might have done it. Yeah. And I just remember some stuff like that I thought was pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I just remember liking him. But like in the pilot, I'm behind you.
Yeah.
It's not his fault that he has to talk about his daughters. I mean, that's a ridiculous thing that I'm glad we tackled.
Well, I don't think he mentions it quickly, but
like,
then they have the funeral thing. Yeah, exactly.
That's actually something that apparently he did actually say.
He might have, but
which is just it's.
But I don't think it would have been in that script if it hadn't been for
the Kardashians.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the most ridiculous Kardashian part was at the funeral.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
She turns and she's like, "Girls," whatever. That was like, oh my god.
Oh, and there's also that is really weird too. Connie Britton's in that scene. She's really bad in this, and she's typically really good.
I can't tell who's being intentionally bad.
I know,
and just bad.
It's probably the 90s makeup. It doesn't help. None of 90s makeup helped anybody look better.
Yeah, because then that was Selma Blair playing what's Chris, right? Chris Kardashian.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And now, entering the center stage, it's Barrett Share.
I can't wait to get you on the floor, good looking.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. I've never watched this video before. So this
Really?
is my first time. Yeah.
It's delightful, isn't it?
It was different.
Yeah. This is when, the album was called The 2020 Experience, and this is after Justin Timberlake did Sexy Back, which was towards the end of the previous decade. But he definitely did his more upscale, like sophisticated type of I've got fuck you money type of thing with the 2020 Experience. And I like it. I dig it. I dig the vibe. I dig the suits and the ties and the bourbon and the blunts and whatever the fuck it is. But what he forgot was to put in good music. And so the music on this album sucks ass, but like the rest of it is fantastic. Like the ambiance and the dancing and all that stuff. Like I love Justin Timberlake. I love everything about him except for his music.
That's
I've said my piece.
That's rough, right? Like that's like the worst.
No, it's fine. I mean, I'm cliche when I say that I like his old stuff, but his old stuff was good. That first album, Justified, had Rock Your Body on it. It had the Crimea River song on it. It really, I think, represented, what he had been working on as a member of NSYNC on his own. Mm-hmm. And then I guess he's just, it's more style over substance with his music. Even when he did that song with Chris Stapleton, that Say Something song, which is good in theory, and I love Stapleton's voice. I love Justin Timberlake's voice, but there's no substance to that song whatsoever. It's literally them saying "say something," ironically, saying "say something" over and over and over again.
Well, I have to say, I mean, maybe thank God, because this is my favorite to date, my favorite music video sins that I've watched. So maybe like all of that anger like just poured itself into this. I loved almost every single thing that you wrote for this video.
Thank you.
And I'm not saying that just because you're my boss and you're here. I mean it. It was so much fun. The whole entire thing was just so much fun. I wrote down so many. I'm like, okay, I just need to say it's my favorite and just be done with it, because there were so many good ones. The standout for me, I mean, besides you pointing out all the things that you've already kind of mentioned with just the extravagance and just showing money everywhere, the slowing down of the music whenever Jay steps to the mic, and just it was the whole thing was. It was pretty ridiculous. It was just bigger and stranger and crazier, and but all the sins just really were fun. But Jeremy's deliverance of those stepping to the mic sex noises, it took me out. I had to stop the video. It was so funny. I'm telling you guys, if you have not watched this one, if you for whatever reason skip music video sins or what, don't skip this one. Go watch it. It is so.
I mean, never skip music video sins. First off,
how dare you?
I asked him to explicitly asked him to put a little stank on it.
Is that you? That was in your narration notes. Mm-hmm. Put some stank on it.
Oh yeah, something like that. Or, like really be sexy with it. And I thought it was just going to be noises, but it really sounded like he was trying to make him sexy.
I know. And they're like, yow.
And then you're like, is that Jeremy trying to be sexy in real life?
Well, it makes it perfect. That's the perfect narration.
He recently did a read for one of the ones that we can't talk about because it's coming out in the future. But when I saw it come down the pipeline, I actually wrote him and said, your delivery on this line killed me. And he's like, I don't remember what I did. So I had to tell him the exact point in the video to go to so he could hear himself deliver it. And we had a good laugh. I wonder, because he does so much narration, I wonder if moments like this stand out to him, though. Like, I would hope that he would remember this one because it's just so funny.
From what I understand, there's, just as you said, there is so much content that comes. It's I think it's like a long-term memory and short-term memory. Like, I'm sure there's things that stick, but a lot of it just kind of gets filtered through.
Yeah.
Just because he's not on autopilot. He's in sin, like blinders, sin guy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll probably just take the audio then and then, make it a ringtone. And then the next time we're hanging out, I'll have someone call me and it'll play and I'll just watch his facial expression and see what happens. Probably.
I have a question for Barrett. What was the Please Mr. Kennedy outtake? I meant to ask that to you when I was reviewing it and I just forgot.
That's literally what I was talking about in the opening of the show. It was from Inside Llewyn Davis.
Oh, that's right. You were talking about that. I just didn't.
Because he's in the studio.
I forgot I had that
he's
question.
Justin Timberlake is in the studio in the video where he's like directing and conducting people, which is, I think, hilarious. But it reminded me of that scene with Timberlake and Oscar Isaac and Adam Driver in Inside Llewyn Davis. And that's such a great scene. And I'm coming around on that movie overall.
These outtakes are great. Music video send outtakes are always fun anyways because we can actually use music because it doesn't really matter. But I loved the Man Show.
Yeah, right.
Which talk about a show that doesn't hold up anymore. Oh my God.
Fuck no. It didn't hold up at the time.
No.
It was, but you know what? But people that were huge fans of that show, like that made it very easy to know who to avoid. So it's kind of nice when stuff like that exists sometimes.
Yeah, and it's hilarious to see how divergent Kimmel and Carolla have gone with their careers. And I think they still hang out. I think they're still friendly.
Yeah.
But one is very politically right and one is very politically left.
Oh, true story.
Yeah.
Well, was there anything else from this video that you would like to talk about specifically, whether it's the process of putting it together or a sin itself? Just kind of jump in and it all. See, Aaron, he has a whole system. I don't have a system. This is like a jumbo or a gumbo. It's a jumbo gumbo. I meant gumbo, but said jumbo. So we're going to go with
it's
jumbo
like GIF
gumbo.
and GIF.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, he's not here, so we don't have to have that conversation.
The other day when I was trying to say dysfunctional family and I said disoriented family, I'm like, well, that's a very different thing.
But also really similar in the
That's a family
way.
that can't remember what day it is.
If you guys don't have anything else, we'll jump into our next video. This one is from the CinemaSins main channel, A Christmas Carol. This was Cher Watkins, so you guys can just, join together on the stage and share a microphone. Tell everybody about how it was to do the thing.
Had you ever seen this, Barrett?
I had seen parts of it. I don't think I had seen the entire thing. I kind of like it.
I do too. That was what I was going to say.
Yeah?
This was a nice situation where I got assigned a movie I probably never would have watched just in my regular life. But
yeah.
And it ended up being something that, like, I want to show my. I mean, it's a little creepy and stuff. So I don't know that I would show my daughter currently, but maybe in a couple years. But I think I'll watch this again. Jim Carrey's really good.
Yeah,
like he gives like a legit performance, even though it's this weird, creepy CG thing. But I still don't think this movie needed to be made.
No,
but
I think it's Zemeckis just showing off.
But since they made it, they did as good a job as they could.
Yeah.
That was kind of my take on it.
Was it easy to sin?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, I would say this is one of the easier ones I've worked on recently.
Yeah, I mean, we could have done I don't know if we did or not, but we could have done a This Movie Exists.
Yeah.
I think we did a longer version of that. But I mean, because there was one I wrote about Muppets and Murrays and much
we
more
both
and stuff
had
like that.
A very similar sin. Like that.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus Christ, you get the Michael Caine, you get the old the old 1950s version.
And you brought up something I had forgotten about. I can't remember which one it was now.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, you've got Scrooged, you've got the Muppets Christmas Carol, you got the Disney, the Mickey's Christmas Carol. Yeah, it's it's a good story, but like of all of the Dickens stories, do we really need to keep going back to this well, especially to a very expensive well, to where, and it's so weird to me that they spent all this money on the mocap or whatever it is, and then they use the same actors for almost all the parts. Like Jim Carrey plays 3 or 4 different parts, Gary Oldman plays 2 or 3.
Yeah,
and it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, I was surprised when I looked at the cast. Like every actor had like 10 names. They had like 5 or 6 or 7 character names by them.
Hey, what'd you think about Fat Carrie Elways, by the way?
Yeah, that was interesting.
It's weird because all of the characters look kind of like themselves.
Except for
Jim
him.
Carrey's face looks like his face.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman looks like him. And then Carrie Elways comes in, and he's this big fat dude.
And there's really no reason behind it.
No, there's no reason for it.
I had to look up who that was, and I love him, by the way. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you do. It's Prince Wesley.
Princess
Wesley.
Bride.
Of course.
And Kiss the
of
Girls.
course.
I'm sure that's where you also... I'm just kidding.
I think that, I wonder when with these types of films, I wonder if getting the rights to make it is just really affordable because maybe it's an older
Like it's in the
written
public
piece.
domain.
Yeah, and
Might
so
be.
it's like this is just an easy one to go for because it doesn't cost a lot. I don't know. Because I also wonder, obviously it's a classic, and so maybe we just redo classics all the time. I'm glad to hear you guys say that it's a good version because I am not incentivized to watch another version of A Christmas Carol personally.
Yeah.
But if it's like this is actually done really well, then maybe it's one that I'll eventually go to. But you said it was kind of dark, and it did look that way. I mean, obviously it looks dark because
I would say that's a
visually
weird
it looks
thing
dark,
about it.
but-
I would say this is not necessarily for adults, but it's definitely for older children. Like, I
Yeah.
would not show your daughter this.
No.
But Muppets Christmas Carol. I mean, the story itself is pretty dark, anyways. But there have been versions of it where it's been done a little with a more lighter flair, I guess.
with puppets. I mean, Muppets.
But even that one's pretty dark. So
Yeah,
maybe
there's
there's not a way
there's
to do
parts
it.
of it.
I don't know.
Well, there's dark stuff in almost everything that I like watched
True.
with Iris. We watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer over the weekend, and Bumble is terrifying. Just gonna say it. The first time you see Bumble through like a 2.5-year-old's eyes,
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh my god!" She's running over, grabbing my leg, "Mom!" And I'm like, "Oh, it's okay. He turns nice when his teeth are taken out later." Like that's really creepy to say to a kid. So
Kids are odd though. My daughter, her favorite movie for the longest time were her 2 favorite movies for the longest time were Coraline and Monster House, which were both pretty creepy, especially Coraline.
Yeah.
Especially and she was probably like 4 or 5 when she watched it. But Paddington scared the crap out of her.
oh, interesting.
Like she just something about the bear. Just it was like the cutest thing ever. There was something about the bear. It just terrified her.
Maybe it was too alive.
I
It was
guess.
too
I don't
real.
know.
Who
She's fine
knows?
with it now, but at that time. And I'm sitting there
Aw.
thinking, like, you watched Coraline. Like, why is a bear going down the stairs in a bathtub freaking you out? But,
Well, were there particular parts of when you were writing the script that were really fun for you, or things that kind of stood out as you were watching it? Like, oh, this is easy to grab, or was there even maybe opposite from that, something that was harder for you to sin as you wrote this?
I murdered this script in an afternoon.
you did.
Which
You sent me an
never
email.
happens. Never happens. I got started on this thing and plowed through it like I was a coke fiend at a whorehouse. What?
Well, this was a late addition.
What?
This was a late addition to our monthly output. And I
Yes.
believe it was literally the day we found out about it. I get an email from Barrett like 3 hours later. Hey, I'm done with this.
I
just to let you
for
know.
whatever reason, and it's a wonderful time when that
Yeah, it
happens.
is.
But when you can just plow through, I did this with Batman versus Superman, and I think Chris did too.
Yeah.
We both like send that within 8-10 hours or something like that, just straight on. And it never happens like that. You have to take a break for life and things and family and stuff. For whatever reason, this one just went like nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, I just don't think I don't think I was able to get started on it until the next day. But yeah, it was one that I was able just to kind of go through. It wasn't one that really I didn't even really stop that much. And I don't know what that was about it, but
Yeah, I mean, the story moved along very
and,
well.
If you're
It's a short
watching
movie.
It helps too.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know, for me, and I think we've talked about this a little bit before, for me, sometimes I have to watch the movie, and we'll talk about that a little bit from Chris's perspective with Endgame here in a second, but you kind of have to sit back and watch the movie, and then you can sin it easier because your brain's not trying to figure out what's going to happen next. You already know, and so it's just easier. So I think maybe even with A Christmas Carol, since we're so familiar with the story, you're able to be in come at it from a different angle.
Oh yeah, because even if we hadn't seen the movie, we still kind of know what's coming.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think that's probably part of it.
It's just presented differently. Like, I thought it was interesting that they had this candle person, for one of the ghosts. Like, that was interesting,
Yeah,
So,
that was weird, and the accent was weird. Everything was weird.
You got to give Lumiere, some more work.
his FaceTime, right? But it's so funny because he's like this floating candle, and then he has a super realistic face, and it was, I don't know.
And he's creepy, like especially that part where he's like touching. He's like touching Scrooge, and he's just like I don't remember what it is he says now, but he's just like hold on, it's okay.
Come with me.
Yeah, it's when he's trying to get him to fly. I loved that we had a Brad Pitt, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood reference.
Yes,
I love that he's out driving right now. As much as I totally agree.
Oh God, there was long stretches. That's one thing in this movie where you think if it you're trying to be economic about how long your takes are, but man, there were some long ass takes, and I think that's where the Brad Pitt thing is. Like these are longer than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt even thinks they are.
And we don't get to feel that because we're watching, this shortened version of it. But it's interesting that they chose to do that because in animation, if you're going to have like a long pause or like a sweeping camera angle or something like that, and it's real people, there's an opportunity for them to kind of emote. Mm-hmm. But with animation, it's really hard to see emotion in animation, even though there's been a lot of progression made in animation. It never can take the place of, a human face. Going through all the ranges of emotions and stuff like that. So it almost, I'm sure it would make it seem even longer because it's like there's not really much going on. So, I also like the hiding under the bushel part. That was just really interesting. Everything
Jeremy nailed that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really, really fun one. Any other last thoughts before moving on to the big hitter today?
Now let's go to Endgame.
All right. We're really excited, obviously, to talk about this. We had some questions come in specifically about this one. Obviously, there's lots of comments about this. There's just a lot we could really unpack about Endgame. This is probably, since I've joined the team, the most anticipated movie that we were going to since I've been around. Was there a movie like Endgame before Endgame that people were like, do this, do this,
Infinity
do this?
War.
Okay, so has it always been Marvel?
Pretty much. And especially the big Avengers, Avengers, the first Avengers was one of the first CinemaSins videos ever. I think it was the third one.
Oh, okay.
It was either, it goes Amazing Spider-Man, Dark Knight Rises, and then Avengers, or vice versa on those last two. But yeah, no, Infinity War was right up there too. Any of the Marvel properties, there was less so with like Captain Marvel, less so with Black Panther. But this was definitely highly anticipated.
Yeah, it was for me fun. Maybe for you guys annoying to always see. So you're gonna do Paddington and not Endgame or whatever we release, And it was really fun because when we had Chris on Behind the Sins, he actually told everyone when it was going to be coming out. He specifically said it was going to be before the end of the year and in December, but surprise, it was even earlier than that.
Yeah.
So because he talked about it in a public way, I was able to sometimes go into the comments and be like, listen to the show and you'll know, and kind of like leave little hints here and there. I even started doing that on Twitter as we got closer and closer to the release date. So Chris set the schedule out and scripts were assigned, and this was Chris and Barrett, or as Aaron does it, Atkinson Share. So
that totally sounds like Aaron, by the way.
Atkinson Share. I
Idly
wish I
ho.
could do Aaron's voice. Idly ho, everybody. There was a question on Twitter. There was the assumption that this was an all hands on deck moment, like everybody jump in and let's give opinions, but it wasn't. So just peel back the curtains.
Oh my God! I think that would have like destroyed Chris's brain.
Well, I don't know that. I think on the one hand, you would think that it would make it easier because you have a lot of people giving their perspective, which can be really great for a script. And we just talked about OJ. That was really, really good for our script because we had 3 people's perspectives coming in from different angles that really made that script very, very good. I think to date, that's one of my favorite ones, even though it was one of the hardest ones because at the end of the day, it was all 3 of us that came together to really like put something out that I'm really proud about. And you would think that maybe for Avengers it'd be the same, but if you've got 6 people writing on a script, the combination process of that would, I don't know, for me, I'm just making an assumption, could be a nightmare. So
yes,
yeah,
your assumption is correct. Well, so I wrote, I think, about 175 for this one, and I think Chris wrote about 150 or something like that. Oh my goodness. Both of which are absurd for us because we're not really the high volume guys, I don't think. And so the combination process was such that we had to really cut some ones that we really, really liked in order to not make it like a 35-minute video. And that's why we had the bonus video that came out later on too, which I had never seen before. In fact, when we were working on it, Chris and I were texting back and forth, and he threw out the idea, I believe, and I was like, you know what, this is a good idea. We've got so much stuff in here. The cutting process, I'm hyperbolic about this because it's ultimately just a video about a movie, but it was like super, super difficult to be like, man, I really want to put that in there, but it just doesn't work in the context of this. And so we ended up, cutting really, really good stuff, really funny stuff. It was hard both from a numerical standpoint and then from a context standpoint to do this comedy.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
You just did.
Oh, that's true.
Go for a second one. Go for a second one.
Is Aaron
You've got
here?
his attention.
Did Aaron just come into Barrett's body? That sounded weird.
That did sound weird.
So
actually, he did.
There's a couple.
Coincidentally,
there's a couple of like extra long sins because you guys are going through like describing the time travel aspects, like longer. I mean, we have long sins occasionally, but there's a couple in here that seemed longer than most. Were those actually like even longer and then broken down, or were they pretty much how they
typically were and we had to pick and choose which ones of those we wanted to include, because if we didn't qualify some of the statements that we make with like a caveat or I understand this, but this still doesn't make sense, that kind of thing, the sin wouldn't make sense. So a lot of those we did keep in full. Every once in a while we trimmed a sentence or a phrase or something like that, but generally they were as they were written.
Those are some of my favorites though, because I mean that just the time travel in this movie is, I don't know, it's insane.
Well, I had a big problem with the time travel, and I wrote plenty of sense, but I also knew that Chris is a bit of a time travel movie expert. Like he really thinks about the logic behind it. He will compare, just like they do here, he'll compare things like, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure with Endgame, with Back to the Future, that kind of thing, with Terminator, all that. So I kind of wanted to leave a lot of that stuff to him. Right. And then we had a lot of discussions back and forth about, does this make sense? Does this make sense? Am I understanding this correctly? And we were pretty much on the same page. And I think anyone who watches the movie and has a problem with it is on the same page as what we are.
It was really awesome for me. So, I reached out to Chris to sort of get his perspective, and, he talked about this is, fans want you to send it. How do you approach it when it's so anticipated? And he said he did the most research that he's done in a long time. And he not only read up and looked up and reacquainted himself with all of the previous Marvel movies, but he also read 2 or 3 articles on time travel alone
Yeah.
As he was approaching that. So did you do the same thing kind of just to prepare for it? Because so many people are going to have their eyeballs on this and they're so excited about it. Did you do the same kind of thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't half-ass, well, you don't half-ass any of the scripts or anything like that, but certainly one that swings for the fences with big ideas and stuff like that, that so many eyeballs have already seen. We wanted to make sure that our shit was tight. Like, you don't want to make a claim that is easily refutable. Part of the appeal of CinemaSins, even before I got involved with them, was that the logic itself should be somewhat unimpeachable, right? Like, you can be like, oh, that guy's a nitpicky asshole, but that's the point. Mm-hmm. But the nitpicks themselves are either fact-based or they're couched in a joke or intentionally obtuse. And, that's the line that you get. We a lot of times throw out sins that are otherwise awesome, but they could be argumentative. And if they are, we can't include that. And especially in something like this, you can't have argumentative sins.
I think in this one, I really felt like the intellect of the sins was really flexing, so to speak, because some of the conversation about the quantum realm, there's one about like, if you spent 5 hours in the quantum realm because of relativity, that was 5 years on Earth, and and then there's several, I think, Jonathan, to your point too, of kind of just going more into that time travel minutia where you can tell it's not just people farting out their perspective, which I think is actually a reference to one of the ones I really like because I'm a dork like that. But it's not just that. It's actually sitting down and really trying to think through things. And, this is one of the ways that for me as a writer kind of looking at that bar that I talk about, I get a little nervous because when I watch a movie like this, it's more like, cool, yeah, whatever.
Well, you're not the only one.
Well,
there's a lot of people that said the same thing.
I mean, the movie in general, it's been a while since I listened to the mini pod you guys did, but you liked it overall, right?
At the time, no. Okay. Saw it once, the first time, when the night that it came out. Loved it. Saw it the very next day with my son. And immediately, like, that time travel stuff and, like, the logistics and stuff like that kicked in. So by the time we did the mini pod, I think I had certainly soured a little bit on it. At this point, I don't think I like it at all.
Really?
I
couldn't say not at all.
That it's like, I'm a huge comic book fan and everything, and I read a lot of Marvel comics, but like, I don't know that there's an MCU movie that like I hold with super high regard. Like, I like a lot of them, but I don't know that there's one that like would make like my, top 100, top 250, favorite films of all time.
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think Iron Man would certainly be up
It'd
there
be
for
close.
me. And
yeah, I mean, that would probably
the first
be
Avengers.
the closest.
I think the thing that I was most excited about, besides just a storyline kind of coming to an end and sort of seeing how they were going to fold everything together, is just the sheer magnitude of all of these people and these characters that have been building for like, what, a decade more?
Yeah. Well, right at, 11 years.
In my lifespan, that's never happened. I mean, Disney doesn't even do that. They don't merge all their Disney princesses together. Well,
they did in Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Oh yeah, they did that.
Will you not give them ideas, Danae? Because their bigwigs listen to us. So
I think for me, it was more of a appreciation of the planning and the dedication of all of the people behind the scenes who have made this culmination, this huge swell. Like if you've ever been to an orchestra or something, there's this moment where it just crescendos into this sound, and sometimes it's so beautiful, and it has such a momentum to it, and it kind of like reverberates through your body, and then part of you is like, wait, is that just a wall of noise? Is this pretty anymore? But you're still just so overcome with it because it's just this gigantic swell. It kind of felt like that, and I think, Barrett, that's why I didn't go back for a second watch.
Yeah,
no, you did the right thing.
I respect that. It even exists. For the people that just love and worship and just are diehard fans of these movies, they didn't cop out on them. They gave them a big explosive finale to at least this section of the MCU movies. I'm really curious to see how they're going to do moving forward, because I've seen a lot of people say that this was kind of the end of it for them. Like this was a great ending point.
Right. Like get out while you're still
so
ahead,
I don't
kind
know,
of a thing.
but,
Yeah.
So I
Did you
totally
guys
respect it on that level, but I'm kind of like Barrett. I just don't think it's for me.
I was watching the video, and there was that part where it's like, towards the end when everyone shows up for the big battle, and narration's like, this is what we're here for, and I was just reliving that incredible excitement in the theater to finally be at this big battle. And then of course they had a whole bunch of stuff to get there, but I wonder if you guys feel the same way. Do you feel like they did a good job serving because if you're going to deal with time travel and all this stuff, you do have to set the stage a bit. And, Chris talked about it in his notes, and I wonder, Barrett, if you would agree that he felt like he wanted to kind of comprehend their version of time travel. And so he just he did something he doesn't normally do, which is he just watched it. At the 50-minute mark, he just sat back and he watched it without actively sending it. He wanted to know if they followed their own rules and if they left anything unexplained. And he says time travel is just so hard to do without contradiction, even when they tried to keep it as simple as they did. But I still feel like they had to spend time in the movie to try to explain what they were doing. Otherwise, they would have just rushed through to the big battle and had to do like the multiple endings Lord of the Rings, which you guys allude to too, which is awesome. Even more so, they'd have to do more wrap up than they would build up. And so I don't know. Do you think they could have done it better? I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Yes. They could have axed the time travel altogether. There was a million ways that they could have gotten everybody unsnapped and all that stuff. Like, there's using the quantum realm. You could go in and get those little atomic particles from the stones and all that bullshit. Like, there's just a million different ways that they could have gone about this that are much less convoluted, would give you the exact amount of fan service, and would pay off in that last Avengers Assemble thing, which I still get chills every time I see it.
Well,
much, and I've watched this movie a lot.
Yeah.
But like, as soon as Cap's hammer and Avengers Assemble, I'll get chills, man.
Yeah.
The on your left and all that stuff. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. But it's also, I think they could have done it in a completely different way, in a million different ways, and actually gotten to that same point in a more focused way. But that's what they decided to do, and God bless them. I mean, they certainly were a little bit successful about it. So far be it
Just
from
a
me
little
to
bit.
suggest
they weren't.
an alternate reality.
And they weren't just like making this stuff up either. They weren't like, I mean, this was an adaptation of a very popular comic book story. And they still kind of did their own thing with it, which is fine. I mean, I don't care about, I'm not a strict adaptation guy, but like Barrett's just talking about, like, there were ideas in the story itself they could have used. I mean, there definitely is still time travel in the story, but
I did like that you guys suggested, in your scripts, you sort of peppered these alternate ending or these alternate ways, like the Ant-Man getting tiny and then going into Thanos' ear and then getting big again, like just all these interesting ways to sort of see how it could have gone in a different direction. So I thought that was also nice because it was a good combination. And Chris talked about this. Barrett, you've talked about this. The pacing of a script is really important. That's something that I really haven't dug my fingers into yet as a team member. I'm never really in charge of script combination. So Jonathan, you know the importance of this too. When you're looking at all of this data and, like you said, there was so many sins to consider and there was unprecedented amount of cuts. And so the decision was to make an extra video, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in just a minute. But the pacing of it is so important because you want to have like fun, punchy things and you want to still get into the minutia of the show or whatever you're sitting. So I thought you guys did such a good job of handling all of that because I can tell that you really cared about the material and you spent a lot of time with it. And I think the fans do too, because I read a lot of the comments and I think people are really pleased with the work you guys did.
Absolutely.
Thanks. It is funny, we with all those things that we peppered, those long sins and the time travel stuff. One of internally, like, our favorite ones was the when Black Widow and Hawkeye are fighting at the top of the cliff and everything, and the sin was sacrificing. And that's something that needed to be done right around that point, like just a quick punchy one to kind of break up the meat.
That was a crazy scene. I was thinking about that on the way into the studio, and I had forgotten that you called it sacrificing, because when I read it, I was like, that's perfect. That's exactly
I actually
what
have a
happened.
question for Danae out of curiosity. I really liked that you guys tackled the what did you call it? The female superhero splash page? Or something like that. What, as a female watching the movie, did you find that scene a little patronizing?
It's right on the border for me. I know what they're doing, and I really appreciate it, even though it's pushing
Because it is
something.
cool. It is cool.
It is cool, and it looks great, and it's really cool to see all of the females that are represented, because they've been in all the different material, and so now to see them all together was kind of like, oh, cool. And I think we're just so used to seeing the guys all assemble, and then there's usually like one token female. And so to see all of them, it was twofold for me. I was genuinely excited. I was genuinely like feeling like, oh my gosh, look, that's me. I'm on the screen right now. And I think we've talked about this before. It's just it's so cool to be included, to have some representation of yourself. But when it has that feeling of kind of being pushed down your throat and it's not subtle, it does feel a little like, I wonder if they could have done that differently. But at the same time, how else would you do it on this massive scale, superhero, like no holds barred, just craziness. Like in my mind, when I watched that, but this is before I even worked for CinemaSins, when I was in the theater, I was like, how did they all get to the same place on the battlefield?
Yeah, exactly. And why weren't there just like a random, like why wasn't Falcon there or
right, or just some random person?
I mean, Spider-Man, I guess technically was there, and that's actually that's a really good moment right before that happens, where she's like, well, hey, Peter Parker, I also like that you guys tackled. It was ridiculous to me. Like Captain Marvel could have just flown in there, I feel like, and blasted all of that army. And then you guys talked about there's that fight with Thanos where Thanos actually is like owning her, and you're like, what is going on?
Yep. Makes no sense.
I mean, that was a problem
lots
too when
of
they
stuff.
Introduced Captain Marvel into it. I remember after the Captain Marvel movie thinking, I don't know how they're going to put her in there and not do something like this, where they, because I mean, she should have just been able to tackle everyone.
Let's jump into some of our specific favorite moments, if you have any that are kind of lingering in your mind after our conversation of just, sins that you really enjoyed or anything like that. And then I'm excited to talk a little bit more about Patreon, because we talked a little bit about it, but I want to unpack that for you guys just in case you don't know.
The only other one I had real quick was the Paul Rudd age sin. And that was a very popular one. I saw a few people tweet that screenshot.
Oh, nice.
So that seemed to be a really popular one.
I had a couple too, and this kind of to my point about the little peppering of ideas that you could have had about going back for more Pim juice and but the ones that I liked, I loved that fart joke. I don't know why I love it so much, but the whole like, I use the stones to destroy it, and then he's like, I use my farts to cover my farts, but there are still farts left over, so what gives? I'm like, oh my god. Am I farting wrong? Because I use spray to cover my farts.
Oh, it's hilarious.
I really loved that a lot. I loved that he did it Thanos did it for a love of like his boner for death or whatever. Just like, let's not forget. And that's that humor that you were able to inject in there that was really exciting. And there was one other thing that I thought would kind of be fun to talk about, which is there was this series on Valkyrie, and you talked about something to do with like her and hoping that she sort of has a moment, and then you fast forward through the movie to these specific places to give substance to that sin. And I thought maybe it'd be kind of fun, because I have thought about doing this also, and I guess there's kind of times to do it and there's times when it doesn't make a lot of sense. But when I'm writing on a script and there's like, you hope there's a payoff, and so you kind of feel like there's a sin sort of bubbling and developing, and then you watch the entire show or the entire movie. What I try to do is find like, so for example, with Valkyrie, you kind of fast forwarded to when she's like on the docks, or when she's being handed over like the rulership or whatever. I would go to that moment and then try to rewind and go, yeah, but here you did this and this. So it's kind of fun to turn it on its head and fast forward, because we kind of think, like in my brain, it's like, oh, you don't do that because you're watching it, we're sitting as we're watching as a feel. But I sort of like breaking that apart and just doing something visually creative and new and different. Because like I said, normally I try to go to the end and then back up.
Right.
So I really like that you guys did that. I thought that was done really well because you've got a sin and you want to make a point, but this is such a juicy, big script. It'll get lost if you put it at the end. So I thought that was a clever way of kind of bringing that one to life.
Yeah, I actually, and when that was being created, part of it is that I've had my head up this movie's ass for a long time. I've seen it just so many times. But I was thinking, I was like, does she have any other moments besides that splash page thing, besides just like a random, like taking a spaceship out or something
She
like
found
that?
a van.
Is she found? Well, yeah, kind of. And then and then being offered the kingdom of Asgard, which is now like a fucking fishing village.
Right.
Like I was like, does she have a moment? And yeah, I literally like scrolled through and I was like, no. There's no. That's
I'm
it.
kind of here. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of a fun way to serve that, and an example of a way that we always try to find new ways of sort of showing you guys how we can send something and sort of be creative with it. So before we go on to keeping tabs and comments and questions, I wanted to just briefly talk a little bit more about Patreon. Mm-hmm. So we have a membership here at CinemaSins. We have, even though our content is free, you can listen to podcasts for free. You can obviously watch what we put out on YouTube for free.
You can?
Yeah, it's incredible. There are amazing people who have decided to become a member and partner kind of with us. And we do all of that through a site called Patreon, which is something you're probably very familiar with, but essentially you can pay just a few dollars a month and essentially just sort of support the creative team and the creative process. And one of the benefits of doing that is not only getting access to what we release early, that includes a podcast and includes videos. I always see comments on YouTube. How did somebody comment on this yesterday if it just posted, an hour ago? And that's because we have membership. So they get that early. But also a really special thing right now is what Barrett was talking about, which is that there was so much content for Endgame. There were so many sins that there are two versions of this video. So you can go to Patreon. You can become a member and you can enjoy it. We've had lots of people joining to go and see it. And we hope you love what you see there and stick around for all the additional fun content. We do hangouts. I don't know. Am I missing anything, guys? Am I missing anything else that we should talk about for Patreon?
You get bonus podcasts. You get some say over polls about what we should send in our different channels and things like that. You also have access to Sin Week, which is coming up in March of next year, where we have bonus videos, more bonus videos, and panels and live stuff. You can even come and meet us in Nashville, Tennessee. The last one was a super success.
Amazing.
And can't wait for this one to come up. And that's one of the tiers too. So there's a lot going on over there. But you want to go, you listener, you person with the earbuds in right now, you want to go there to watch the Endgame bonus video. I swear to you, it's delightful.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. And I think that as I was reading Chris's notes on just his process of putting the idea out for Patreon video, it's really thrilling for the guys to be able to put something together that's just for members. And it's not something that has happened a lot since I've been around. I don't know if it's happened with a video like this. Does it happen regularly? Am I missing something?
No,
or is
with
this like a big
bonus.
deal?
No, with bonus sins, this is, I think, the first time this has ever happened. Now,
Gotcha. Well, that is more about Patreon. If you're interested, please go to patreon.com/cinemasins. There's also links on all of the social media. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. We are behindthesinspod@gmail.com, and we can help direct you wherever you need to go. So, and real quick, thank you guys so much for the members who are already supporting us. We have a large portion of the listeners of Behind the Sins that are already members. And if you are loving what you're seeing and what you're getting, go tell somebody about it on social media. I've already seen you doing that since the video went up. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Any tweets and stuff that you want to send out about us, we love, because that only helps.
Most of them.
Huh?
Most of them. Most of
But
them.
that's true. Most of them. No.
All right.
Yeah, and I pushed really hard for a bonus Christmas Carol video, but I was
my God.
outvoted. So sorry, guys.
Can you imagine?
There's like 10 sins out there that we didn't.
Suddenly, like 50 people are unsubscribing. They're like running for the hills. All right, that's it for the SinSide Scoop. Let's move on to keeping tabs.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
Oh, jeez.
This is the most public yet of my many humiliations.
All right, so here we are at keeping tabs. We're also going to be jumping right into the comment section, feedback, your questions, and then Beyond the Sins in the fastest way possible. Why? Because I'm in charge. All right. So here in keeping tabs, though, what we like to do is if we had to do some research while we were on a script, something maybe funny or awkward that we had to kind of look into, or maybe even just something very interesting, we talk about it here in this section. So I'll go ahead and start, and then we'll go to Jonathan and end on Barrett. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I did some research for People versus OJ and found this is really interesting because you're like researching something that's real and true. So it's not just like the behind the scenes of a show or something like that. It was all like I got really interested more in, I guess, not surprising, the real crime of what was going on. And so and then I got on this like Robert Shapiro thing because I think I was trying to figure out how Travolta was like what he was drawing from to create his expression of Shapiro.
The Crypt Keeper.
So I was trying to like find videos of Shapiro, and I ended up finding this one video where he was talking about I don't remember who it was with, but it was on some major network, and it was years later. He was talking about I mean maybe even the last 5 years or something, because he was quite a lot older. He was talking about like his takeaway from the case, and he was quoted as saying, "There's moral justice and there's legal justice, and when the not guilty verdict was rendered, I felt legal justice. But as far as moral justice, I haven't discussed it with anyone, including my wife."
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And I found that to be so fascinating. He also was asked if OJ, when he went back to, or he had another court case because he stole back, he was caught breaking and entering and trying to steal back memorabilia of his own that he had already, sold to someone else. He was asked in this interview if he was called to consider OJ as his whatever, I can't think of the word right now, to represent him. And
his
he
attorney.
said, yeah, they're like, would you, were you called to be OJ's attorney? And he kind of scoffed, and he was like, no, I wouldn't have taken OJ's case because he still hasn't paid me for the first one.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So
Well,
that was
he went
interesting.
into all kinds of debt and bankruptcy afterwards, paying off. In fact, I think, I'm talking out of my ass a little bit here, but I think the settlement that he was due on the civil case that he was supposed to pay to the Goldmans, I think he stiffed them on that too.
Yeah, he hasn't.
Or at least not in full.
Yeah, from what I read, that's what I read as well, is that whether it's nothing or hardly anything, there really hasn't been any payment. But that was interesting that he still hasn't paid his attorneys, at least at the time of this particular recording that I was watching.
That strikes me as something that probably happens more than we know.
Well, and also to watch that first one and see that he brought in all those doctors and all those people, that was probably out of his own pocket to ensure that he had his own evidence to go from and his own, his own stuff, his own resources. So, he had his own expenses there that obviously weren't, he didn't get back. And then final thing that I learned about Robert Shapiro is that he founded LegalZoom.com, and I did not know that either. So those are the things I looked up for People versus OJ. Jonathan, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about for keeping tabs?
When we did Christmas Carol, I knew there was something about Zemeckis' company and so I didn't, I'm not really using any of this, but I just did some research on, it was Image Movers Digital was the name of the company that produced the movie. Or that was Zemeckis' company, which was just a offshoot of his Image Movers company, which does all of his live action films. And before this, had done 3 of these similar movies. They did Polar Express, they did Monster House, and they did Beowulf. And all of those were moderately successful. They made a decent amount of money. So he decided to create his own animation company called Image Movers Digital. And then he did A Christmas Carol, which was budgeted at 175 to 200 million, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Oh
And it had a box office of 350 million. So, which, I mean, that's not a huge hit, really.
Is that worldwide or?
I think. Well, it's just
domestic?
what I got off Wikipedia. That usually includes worldwide too. I think most of it was domestic though.
So you paid your bills, and that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I
But
mean,
you
it's
didn't come out on
that's-
top.
I mean, that's a moderate success. But then they did.
Yeah.
But then they did a movie called Mars Needs Moms. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah.
And Zemeckis actually didn't direct it. It was Simon. It was Simon Wells was the name of the guy that directed it. That was a budget of 150 million, and it made 38. So
Jesus.
yeah. So Image
That was
Movers
$150
Digital,
million movie.
huh?
Mars Needs Moms was $150.
Yeah, because
or
of all
$150
the
million.
mocap
Yes,
and-
$150.
And what's crazy is like I've seen that, and that's like I guess the sixth movie or whatever, fifth movie, and it's like the creepiest looking one,
Nice.
which is interesting. But yeah, let's see it. I was trying to look and see if that was worldwide real quick, but it's not. Yeah, so it made 100. Yeah, so it only made A Christmas Carol only made 137 domestic, and then it made 187 in other territories. So that's how it got its. So it was not really a huge hit. I thought I remembered it doing better than that. But yeah, Image Movers Digital is no more because of that. Mainly because of Mars Needs Moms. But and
I don't even remember that movie.
well, and Zemeckis at one point even said he couldn't foresee himself ever making a live action movie again. And then I guess he kind of got to where he had to. So so then he made Flight, after that, and then he's made a few since then, like The Wall.
Ooh, I just went and looked up Mars Needs Moms just real quick to kind of, I don't remember anything about it. It's interesting because Google users say 72% likes it, but then on IMDb it's 5.4 out of 10 with a 37% Rotten Tomatoes.
I mean, I don't remember a whole lot about it other than the mocap was creepy and it was not. I just don't remember. I don't remember it being good.
Interesting.
But I haven't really thought much about it since I saw it like 5 or 6 years ago.
There you go. Anything interesting that you looked up or kind of got on a little search bunny trail for your movies and your scripts, Mr. Barrett?
Well, see, you guys did like actual knowledge based things. What I looked up was spontaneous orgasms because
No, it's like Aaron never left.
It is. You're so right.
It's for a script that's upcoming, actually. One that I just that was an unintentional pun right there.
I like how you emphasized it though, unintentionally.
Yes.
Upcoming.
One that I just literally finished right before we started recording this.
Is that also part of the pun that you finished? Oh, no, sorry. It just keeps going.
Well, yeah, it does keep going. That's the whole point. Spontaneous orgasms is like you can be walking down the fucking street and then the boom, like all of a sudden there you go.
Really?
And yes,
Male
yes.
and female?
Male and female. Obviously, it's not always like awesome because there's certain times in which you don't want to have an orgasm. But and if it just occurs spontaneously, then what are you going to do about it, right? So yeah, there's different ones. There's exercise-induced orgasms. There's something called a birthgasm, apparently.
Yes, I've heard about that one.
Birth.
I researched that one while I was preparing for birth.
Yeah. Well, don't have to go any deeper than that.
I
but
love
yeah,
making things awkward for you.
you can.
You're welcome.
But yeah, you can have when you're conscious, when you're just walking down the street, when you're in like an office meeting or something like that. Boom.
There it
And this is a thing. This is a thing that happens. And I had to look it up to see because I made a joke about it, saying that this certain song inspires spontaneous orgasms. I was like, is that actually a thing? And it is.
It is.
You
is a
really
thing.
don't need men. Like,
No
just
one
for
does.
Or
nothing.
women.
That's
Yeah.
a joke. That's a joke.
I don't need your pussy, bitch. I'm on my own dick. What?
Ooh.
Sorry.
I was trying to be your backup girl. I don't know what I was
That's a
doing
Kanye
there.
line. That's one
I
of
figured.
Kanye's classic raps.
All right, and now let's go on to the next one because we're just breezing through. This is the comment section.
I appreciate your honesty. You're a real straight shooter.
You are the ones who are the ball lickers.
We're each going to try to pick comments that we saw throughout this week in videos, maybe even just personal messages that we've gotten on different threads, and respond to those. So if you guys have one, just jump right in. We'll try to get through these, and we've got some really interesting feedback and questions to get to, so I'm excited for that too.
The only comment I pulled up, just because I thought it was really interesting, because I didn't even think about this, but on the People versus OJ, somebody pointed out the Kato Kalin sin and said that one sin/joke is the entire reason they uploaded this the day before Thanksgiving. That was from Intact B. Jorn. And I didn't even think about the fact that we made a Thanksgiving reference. Because, I mean, I don't think that was ever the intention.
Was that on purpose?
No.
It definitely wasn't.
Sometimes I wonder if we do things on purpose because it's so smart. Yeah.
Because this wasn't even supposed to be the one that, I mean, because, just a little insider, this got switched around because we had another one ready sooner. I guess it still would have come out the same week, but it wouldn't have been the day before.
Yeah, because we didn't know for sure. Even if we plan on releasing a video, sometimes our plans are completely thwarted, as you guys know.
Yeah,
so that's true.
That was just, I thought that was interesting, so I copied that over. So
I'm picking a comment from Discord. This one comes from Mumble Me. I tweeted about it already, but the comment was that they were only in fifth in to the previous episode, and were talking about how they really enjoyed it. But what I wanted to kind of point out, and that I think is really great, she says, I'm listening to three smart people who seem to have opinions that in many ways are quite different from mine, but still I'm really intrigued by the conversation, and I like getting an opportunity to reevaluate my opinions and views. So I really appreciated that comment. We love that you kind of feel that way. Yeah. When we get to the feedback here in a second, we'll kind of continue that same vibe of just all trying to kind of.
Well, I'm sorry we had Barrett on this week, and I hope I hope that didn't ruin this person's enjoyment. I'm just kidding.
No, in fact, it's really exciting because on the survey, that was one of the most recommended things. Like, I love to have guests, more guests. And so we're already kind of doing what people want. So anyways, that was one of the comments that I saw, not particularly about a specific video, but just about what we do in general. Barrett, did you have one?
I got two. I got two
Go
quick
for
ones. All right. First is, they're both on the suit and tie video because I've got that pulled up right now. One is from Maria Patoka. It says, this suit and tie video, it was directed by David Fincher. The audacity of this channel. Which I appreciate. Yes.
I didn't know Fincher directed that.
And it is, David Fincher did direct it. I agree. We have audacity. We got cojones. The second one is from Imani Lloyd, and she says, you should send some 80s music videos. Now, you listen to me, Imani. I would love to send only 80s videos. If we did a whole side channel of just classic music video sends, I would be all over that stuff. If I could clone myself and have more time to do it, I would fucking kill that stuff. So I like your suggestion, and I agree with you.
Me too.
Oh, wow. See, this is why you leave comments, people. You might inspire some crazy new side quest. You never know. Jonathan, did you have any more comments you wanted to highlight?
No, I think that was it.
Okay. The rest of mine kind of came on Twitter. Just people, Danny CG saying you guys are great. And I get twice excited now when I see a video because there's also going to be in-depth conversation about it. So,
that's nice.
Super appreciate your guys' love. Yeah. We're going to go on to our feedback and questions. So here is a question that kind of came in. Because I'm in charge this week. Have I said that yet? Have I talked at all about having the power yet? I feel like maybe I should talk about it a little bit more. I don't know. Do you guys think I really want to let you know I'm in the power seat?
Let's go into more depth.
I'm sorry. What did you say? I'm just kidding.
Aaron had sent notes for us. He was like, hey, here's the feedback, and here's some cool stuff that you guys could talk about.
And you were just like, screw that.
I know. I sent a message yesterday. I was like, nope, we're doing something different. Large in part because I started this Twitter account and I had some fun questions. I wanted to get to them right away. So here is a question from Morgan on Twitter. On a scale from 1 to 10, how glad are you that you'll no longer get requests for Endgame?
Well, this is a good question for Barrett, actually. So that was a good one to put on for this episode, since he worked on Endgame.
Yeah. The perfect person to ask this is actually Jeremy, because Jeremy, his Twitter feed is bombarded by this, and I can't imagine how you sift through and actually, I guess you probably mute some stuff. But he's been getting bombarded with Endgame requests ever since it came out, which is hilarious. It would be in theaters and like, when are you doing Endgame? Like, yeah, we're gonna video it or something like that in the theater, like a fucking.
Oh my
Seinfeld
God, that would be
episode.
amazing.
Yeah, that would be something. Yeah, so I think he's at a 10. I'm probably somewhere around a 5.
I mean, yeah, because at some point, I mean, in one way, the fact that people are requesting stuff, I mean, that's good, right? But yeah, at some time, it's just like, come on, man, just use common sense. Like, it's in the theater. Like, how are we going to do that?
I would say, if I don't know about my scale, I would say I'm assuming that people are still going to request it because they just didn't check their feed. That's my. They're just so used to just putting it in the comments that they totally missed it.
Well, I mean, and next it's going to be like Joker or something.
Right. Right.
That would be my guess. Would be the next one that would get any kind of traction.
It would be fun to know if there's no way to do this, but it'd be really fun to know how many times it's been requested. You know what I mean? Like across all the platforms, how many times someone has commented something about it. Do
you get like a specific music video requesred over and over? Can you think of? I mean, I can't think of any TV show we've got like this.
Whenever something new comes out, like when Lover came out, Taylor Swift's Lover, or like Camila Cabello, like Havana and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Senorita. Ooh la la. So yeah, when those come out, in fact, we one of the requests that we got a bunch was Adele's Hello. And I send Adele's Hello the day that fucker dropped. And yeah, this is something that's old, so I don't feel bad talking about it. But because of claims, because of copyright, they threatened to like give us a strike and shit like that. After the second time that we posted it, the first time they blocked it. This is I forget the label or whatever it was. And the second time we put it up, we thought we had everything resolved, and we got a takedown notice or whatever it is. So after that, of course, it was insanely popular. So after that, we got a ton of requests to do Hello, and I was like, we've already done it. It's really good.
But I guess that does make sense because with music videos, unlike movies and even TV shows, you're able to just kind of do something immediately because it's just on YouTube or whatever. So
right.
I guess that is one thing good about the music video side of it.
That's interesting.
Because even with TV sends, I mean, the day Mandalorian came out, so this is coming next week, right?
Right.
And it's like,
yes,
we're working on it.
that's exactly. Yeah, you guys don't know this, but in between when the videos are posted, we all just sit around and do nothing. So we have nothing but time.
Yeah, we don't have families.
So, yeah, no, we don't work, really. I mean, no. Next question's from Nick on Twitter. Hey, B team, question for the pod. Any plans to discuss the older videos? Every Saturday you re-release an old video, and I thought it would be fun to hear your thoughts on those. So I don't have an answer to that. I don't think that's something that we've really sat around and brainstormed.
No, that actually, I don't believe that's ever come up. I mean, I'm okay with it.
Well, I think the cool thing is that we're in this interesting kind of post-survey moment where we're going to be sitting down and brainstorming after reading all of the incredible suggestions that you guys have for us and coming up with some potential either new segments or a mini pod, because that's a huge request. And so that might be something that we can touch on, that we sort of have. So if you guys are interested in that, and you're on Twitter, you can go and comment on Nick's suggestion if you want to find that there. So thank you guys so much for the questions. I think that's a really good idea.
I agree. I think that'd be fun.
I wonder if it'd be difficult because since we're in the moment right now, we kind of can remember who wrote on a script. So we would probably have to change maybe even a little bit of how we approached it, because I don't know how long it's been since that video was sent and how we would find out like the backstories, and so we might have to change a little bit about it, but that's not a problem, and we can always just come up with creative ways to talk.
What's funny though is the one that just came out this Saturday was one Barrett and I wrote.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's talk about Megamind.
No,
wasn't that
Did
you,
I write
Barrett?
on it? No, I don't think. God,
I thought that was me.
This is
and
why
you.
it would be hard, guys. This is why it would be hard, because you'd be like, was that me?
Maybe it was like me.
I think
I thought it was me.
No,
and
I think I did. I completely forgotten that. I think I edited it too. Jesus Christ.
See? I think we would have to come up with a fun way to go back in time. So, which we could totally do.
Well, and we're just now getting to ones that like I've even written on because I mean, Barrett and Chris and Jeremy have been doing this a lot longer than me and Aaron. So I've just now started noticing Saturday videos like, oh, I worked on that. It's
right.
Sort of,
yeah. Or then there's ones like Hulk, where you guys did it so long ago, and it just sort of is, you have to sort of go back. Yeah. Which is why I try to keep notes as I write scripts for this very reason, so I can go back and go, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking in the moment. I would have totally forgotten about that.
Yeah, I should have. When I wrote Megamind like a year and a half ago, I should have thought, I bet I'm going to meet somebody named Danae, and we're going to do a podcast together.
It's because you're what
at least you remember that you did it.
So I don't want to end the show on a weird note, but we did get some feedback, and I'm going to bravely kind of wade into this particular feedback that we got from the survey. I want to do this for a couple of reasons. One, I want you guys to know that when you have a criticism or a question that could be perceived as criticism, that we're always open to, peeling back the curtain of our own person and talking about that. So here's what was written in. It says, this is nitpicky, but there are a lot of people that would love to work for you. You are a movie and TV podcast, and hearing Danae say repeatedly how she hates, literally uses that word, movies and TV just sounds ungrateful and sometimes boastful. You should have some interest in the subject matter, but that's me, though I am sure I am not the only one. So I thought this was a nice bit of juice to just, chomp into here. And kind of hear some feedback too from you guys about how this hits you. But I think I'll kind of set the tone for us a little bit and say, you know what? You're right. I use the word hate, and I probably shouldn't use that word. Hate to me is kind of like, I don't know, it's like saying you kind of have a phrase you sort of lean in on, and instead of trying to find maybe the more appropriate word, you just sort of like lean on to a word. And I do say I hate movies a lot, so thank you for pointing that out. I don't want to ever come across as ungrateful, but if I have been, I do need to think about that and work on that, because this is a job where we're around a lot of movies. But I do want to say that to do this job does not mean I have to love movies like the guys do. And I've struggled with that a lot, actually, in joining the team, because I am not like them. And so I do compare myself to them. And I think part of why I've talked about hating movies is as I'm just personally sharing very openly my process of joining the team, being on Behind the Sins and jumping onto Sincast and even the Patreon Hangout. It's me, you're just watching a new person acclimate to a very different environment. I don't know that that disqualifies me from doing this job. I don't know that it means that I shouldn't work for them because somebody else, who loves movies would do a better job. I don't know. Maybe they would. They probably would. There's so many people out there that could very easily nail this. But I can only be me, and I can only go from my own perspective, and I can only tell you that I would have already been fired if I was terrible at it. So I hope that you and others who maybe feel that same way, maybe a little offended about how I've talked about my job, I hope you kind of hear my heart in that it's kind of two parts. One, I don't think that disqualifies me from doing this, but two, I should be a little bit more careful about maybe some of the words that I use. So I just wanted to kind of say that. And Jonathan, Barrett, if you have anything that you want to add, you can jump in, but I just wanted to kind of clear that air a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you did from your own perspective, because I can tell that this affects you. Whoever does have this criticism, in particular of Danae, shut up. Because Danae is great. We are extremely happy that she's a part of the team. Feel free to, talk amongst yourselves and things like that, but there's no business with this. Danae is fantastic. If anything, to me, when I've been listening to the Behind the Sins podcast, it's, how I'm going to make a movie comparison, like in Inception, where Ellen Page's character comes in and she's the proxy for the audience. Right? She's the person that needs to be explained to all of these things. Otherwise, You're hanging out with pros that all know the rules and the things and stuff like that. if anything, Danae's journey into getting into this world has been awesome because it should have brought you listeners into kind of our process as a proxy. And I think it's been delightful. And Danae's great. Everybody calm down.
And we all take our jobs very seriously, but just working with Danae and working on scripts with her, she does an insane amount of research. And she does an insane amount of rewatching for each script. I'm not saying like I mean we all give our 100%, but I don't know. It's just it's very impressive to me the route she takes to get these scripts done.
Well, I definitely didn't want this to be like a pat my back moment. But I appreciate your guys' perspective because, I definitely have come a long way as an individual. I want to share like the vulnerability of being somebody who personally has felt disqualified for this job. It is something that I want to be able to talk about, but I did not mean to give the impression that I don't like what I do. Well, so it's just the medium is difficult for me. Sometimes we do a job that there's just a part of it that's very difficult. And for me, script writing is one of those things because I don't relate to movies the same way as the guys. So I just throw out the word hate, but I need to be careful with that. I think
some of that is us just being goofy too. Some of that is lot of that is us just joking around. Like we've made jokes about like, well, that's very fitting because that's what CinemaSins is, right?
And I do want you guys to hear too that, and maybe this will be kind of the thing that kind of takes us out, is just a real quick story as a little visual for you. I was driving into the studio a couple of days ago, and I was going about 5.5 miles over the speed limit, and directly in front of me was this gigantic SUV, not like one of the cute little sport SUVs, one of the big ones. And I drive this really small Toyota Yaris, and from what I'm understanding, this person thought that I was riding them, that I was too close, right? And so they got into, I'm going to skip over the details of the story, but suffice it to say I had to call the police because they were following me after this.
Shit. Goodness.
They were very, very angry. It turned into this craziness. So today I'm driving and I'm on the same exact road. I'm in the same exact car. I am the same exact person. And I'm driving 10, maybe 12 miles over the speed limit, and somebody is behind me, riding me, wanting me to go 50 miles an hour, and they zip around me and they flip me off because I'm going too slow. And my point is that I'm just the same person, and someone's going to have a different opinion about who I am and what I do. Some people are going to get mad and that I'm going too fast or that I'm going too slow. And what I want to do is I just want to kind of give an example of a journey. And so hopefully in the next years, I can look back on this and kind of have even more growth with you guys. And to the person who wrote this, I hope you don't feel that, your opinion isn't valid. I actually really appreciate that you were bold. There's actually some other bold comments that we're going to get to. Some of your guys' suggestions about things we shouldn't do on the show anymore. And I think it's really good to talk about that stuff. So anyways, thank you for your feedback. Let's go to Beyond the Sins.
To infinity and beyond!
Somewhere beyond my wild history.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Okay, so this is one more thing we want you guys to know about that's just happening out in pop culture, something that we're watching, something we're doing, something we're saying, something blah, blah, blah. Let's start with Barrett. Barrett, what else do you want people to take their eyeballs and go check out?
Okay, I've got something that you shouldn't check out, but you may want to, right?
Okay.
How's that for a tease? Okay, if I were to tell you that there's a movie, a Christmas movie, with Alan Arkin, John Goodman, Ed Helms, Diane Keaton, Anthony Mackie, Amanda Seyfried, June Squibb, Marissa Tomei, Olivia Wilde, and Steve Martin, you would want to watch that movie, wouldn't you?
What?
I have no idea what
Love
you're
the
talking
Coopers.
about. What is this?
Love the Coopers?
Love the Coopers.
Oh.
It's an ensemble dramedy from 2015 that is trying to be Love Actually, and it fucking sucks.
I don't remember this. Was this in the theater?
I know. I forgot that it came out too. And I watched this whole thing with my wife the other day, and I'm like, this should be good. This should be fine. There's actually a scene with Anthony Mackie, Falcon, and Marissa Tomei, Aunt May, and I was like, whoa, worlds are converging. It fucking sucks. So if you find yourself like drawn to this this movie that looks like it could be good. It's not. So
oh no!
So it's more Christmas with the Cranks than Love
But there's
Actually.
a puppy in it. How
I
is
love
the
me
dog?
some Christmas with the Cranks.
Sorry, that was a bad. I don't think I've ever actually watched it. I'm just making assumptions.
How was the dog in the movie though? That's the most important thing.
He is voiced by Steve Martin.
And
really?
You enjoy like silly Christmas movies, right?
Yeah. I like Jingle All the Way. I like Christmas with the Cranks. I love Christmas Vacation.
So I went to Google and just searched the Love the Coopers images, and I'm looking at like maybe the cover or whatever, where it's all of them standing together and they're wrapped in a bow around the front, and I zoomed into the dog at the bottom, and I'm just looking at everyone's feet. And the way that they've photoshopped this whole crew together, they literally have somebody floating about 6 inches above the air. And
Nice.
I don't know whose leg it belongs to, but somebody is literally floating. And they didn't try to elongate their leg with Photoshop and put their foot on the ground. They just added the drop shadow and literally left 6 inches of space.
Nice.
That's
the level of detail that was put into this movie.
No. Awesome. Well, that's a good wreck-a-warn, right?
No, it's a warn. Run.
We had a
Run away.
wreck-a-warn on our own show.
That's
Aw.
right.
Jonathan, what about you?
So I checked out the first 3 episodes of the M. Night Shyamalan Presents show on Apple Plus called Servant. Dropped on, I believe, Thanksgiving, actually. And I watched them over the weekend, and it's pretty great. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
I know people are going to be mad because they're going to be like, I don't want to subscribe to something else. And you don't have to, but I'm just telling you it's really good. This is stuff from the trailer, so this is what I'll talk about because I don't want to give too much away. But Lauren Ambrose and from 6 Feet Under and Can't Hardly Wait, is she in that? I don't know. She's in 6 Feet Under.
Mm-hmm. She
and
is.
Toby Kebbell, who was Koba in the Planet of the Apes movies, and he was most recently actually in the Black Mirror episode that we send. They hire a nanny played by Nell Tiger Free, who I've never seen anything before, but she's very good, to care for their child. So this is like how the show opens. And then you see the child and you find out the child is like a doll. And what you find out is it's like this kind of some version of like, I can't remember what Toby Kebbell calls it, but it's basically like a self-help child. Something tragic happened to their baby, and the Lauren Ambrose character cannot deal with it, essentially. Like, she's not willing. She's basically like in so much shock, she's forgotten that anything even happened. So this is apparently some kind of like a therapy doll, basically. And then so that's how it opens. That's most of what you see in the first episode. And then it just gets bonkers.
But good bonkers.
Yeah. And so there's really not a whole lot else I want to say about it because you just got to watch it. I kind of think I know where it's going. At least I kind of think I know like the subgenre of horror thriller territory it's going in, but who knows? But it's like creepy, like in the really good way, like it, in a good way, and it's a really cool mystery so far. Rupert Grint, who as far from Ron Weasley as he possibly could be, plays Lauren Ambrose's brother in this, and that's really interesting. But yeah, no, it's really good. The episodes are only 30 minutes, which is nice. It's kind of like The Mandalorian. They're choosing to do like these shorter episodes, which I kind of dig. I do feel like, at least in the last episode, I feel like they kind of had to cut it a little shorter than maybe they would have if they were, if it was a little longer. But there's still like 7 episodes left, but because they're going to start releasing them weekly after this, like they're doing with all their other programs. But so far, I'm really, really digging it. So
cool.
If that sounds interesting to you, sign up for the service or wait like 7 weeks, and then you can just sign up for the free month and watch all of them, or however you choose to do those things.
However you want to work the system.
That's so perfect, like ginger casting between Rupert Grint and Lauren Ambrose.
Kidding, right?
If you told me that they were brother and sister in real life, I'd probably believe you.
I don't know where she's from, but yeah, other than the nationality, maybe that would probably work.
Mm-hmm. Is he playing a Brit or
no?
Is he playing
He's got Actually, I'm trying to think of where they're located.
It's got a Polish accent.
Because Toby Kebbell has I believe he still has a British accent, but no, they're, as far as I know, they're supposed to be American. So
cool. Mine is twofold. Just a super quick Wikipedia. At the time we're recording this, it's what is it after Black Friday? It's something Monday.
Cyber Monday.
And so I was on Wikipedia during the recording of this show and reminded again that they depend on people donating monies. And so they're doing another kind of push to try to make sure that they get to stay independent and stay ad free. So just a reminder to people, if you would like to donate to Wikipedia, go for it. But my actual one to recommend today is another Dungeons and Dragons podcast. I have been continued to have people like message me, hey, try this one out, try this one. There's so many podcasts out there. And another one has come to the front as a favorite. I'm listening to all of their backlog. It's called D&D and D. D&D. And so it's Dungeons and Dragons and dinner. And so, but what I like about this one is what I like about all of the ones. So probably a little bit of a broken record, but for those of you who listen to podcasts based on my suggestion, especially for Dungeons and Dragons, this is going to be right on point, which is a really great editing job where you're not just listening to friends sit around and talk for 4 hours. The editing keeps it on point. It keeps the story front and center. It keeps the dice rolling and the addition to a minimum, so you don't have to sit there and listen to people play a game and the minutia of that. But also they're all mic'd really well, so you can hear all of them really well. And you can tell that the Dungeon Master is doing a really good job. He has a plan, and that's always really nice when your Dungeon Master has a plan. So again, it's called D&D and D. I highly recommend it. If you are triggered by cussing, you're in the wrong place. But this one does have cussing, just so you know. I started listening, I think about 2 weeks ago. Started back in June of 2018, and I am now through August of 2018. So nice. It's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. I think they do a great job, and I'm excited to kind of share that with you. So that is my Beyond the Sins.
That's awesome.
And that will do it for this week.
Yay!
I did not beat the recording record for today. We recorded in a normal amount of time, and that's totally fine because you love listening to our show no matter its length, and we really appreciate that. Barrett, how can people connect with you?
You can go to CinemaSins on YouTube. You can go to Music Video Sins on YouTube. You can go to @MusicVideoSins on Twitter. Our podcast, Sincast, that occasionally features Danae and frequently features Jonathan, especially with these mini pods recently.
That's been a lot of fun.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to say, Jonathan, did you have anything you wanted to plug?
Well, I just wanted to plug, we just did, speaking of mini pods, Chris and I did a Frozen 2 mini pod, which was recorded with a very special guest, my 8-year-old daughter, Mackenzie. And it's really interesting editing your daughter, by the way. But I don't know, just really excited about that one. That should be dropping. It hopefully will have already dropped when this airs, but if not, it will be out very soon. So I hope people give a listen to that, and I know that will make my daughter very, very happy.
And she's awesome.
Yeah. I will just plug once again our new BTS Twitter handle at CinemaSins BTS. You can find us there. I, again, have no idea what I'm doing on Twitter. I am trying to follow back every single person that's followed us so far. We're at 207 followers, which is pretty fun.
Nice.
So I hope that I'm having fun there. I hope you guys think I'm having fun. It's really actually hilarious to me because I did go back and forth with my own personal account and had a pretend argument on Twitter, and someone didn't realize that I was in charge of them both and said that maybe the person in charge of Twitter was either like really funny or like an asshole.
Well, I mean, they did try to start a beef between me and Aaron. So
yeah. Yes. My goal is to make this Twitter something kind of like a Wendy's, right? Because we all love Wendy's Twitter. So anyhow, that will do it for this week. If you guys have any questions or comments or feedback or whatever, you can email us. Our email right now is a Gmail email. It's behindthesinsPod@gmail.com. And that'll do it for this week. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. Send any feedback to behindthesinspod@gmail.com, and be sure to subscribe or message us at Twitter. And be sure to visit CinemaSins.com.
Yes, that's Danae. I didn't get very much sleep last night. This may be the worst show ever. But we're going to have a good time, hopefully. Okay, I'm going to call you right now. I'm going to push this button. It's going to work. I'm going to push the button and it's going to work. Going to push the button and it's going to work. Going to push the button and it's going to work. That's your new ringtone. Hey, what's up? Is it wrong that I sort of hope that I'm sick forever because this like deep voice is just, it's my favorite?
Didn't somebody actually say that you sounded sexy or something? Like, I think somebody tweeted
though.
that.
Like, I'm not saying I didn't sound sexy before. Like, maybe I should actually find the script for Behind the Sins. Like, maybe that's a good idea. Aaron trusted me to lead the show today, and I don't even know. Oh my God. You know, people probably think I just I didn't even realize I was making that sound.
No, what I was doing, Jonathan, you've seen Inside Llewyn Davis, right?
It's been a minute, but yeah.
There's this wonderful scene with Oscar Isaac, Justin Timberlake, and Adam Driver, where they're doing this song, and the songs in this movie are really, really good. And they're recording this song, and it's like, "Please, Mr. Kennedy, I don't want to go to outer space." And Adam Driver is like the sound effects guy, so like they're talking. Justin Timberlake and Oscar Isaac are talking about the song, and Adam Driver's in the corner just going like, "Shoot!" Anyway, it's funny.
Goldberg.
Did you see the woman jump in a bush at the Auburn game?
What?
I think a lot of people jumped in the bush. Yeah, I saw that.
It's really funny because like Auburn wins the game against Alabama, so everybody's like jumping onto the field, and there's these bushes like in between the field, like a bush barrier, and this one woman just doesn't clear it.
Oh no!
No, there were several people that didn't clear it.
There's this shot of her just like looking up out of the bush, like she's like somebody help me. Like,
no. All right.
So many inappropriate things that I want to say.
Huh? Oh, about Bush? Yeah.
About Bush. Well, yes, about the band Bush.
That's right.
That's right. Gavin Rossdale. Yeah.
Well, this is the place to do it.
16 Stone.
You have free reign.
Stone. Alanis Morissette is doing a new album.
That's awesome. I love me some Alanis. I've seen her in concert quite a few times, like 4 or 5 times.
I've never seen her. I'd love to though. She's definitely one of my favorites. So all this talk about Bush reminds me of a funny story before we get started on the show. So when I was writing on the Alita Battle Angel, and I wrote that little quip about Jennifer and her legendary bush, I was writing that script, and I was like writing this joke, and I was at my parents' house when I was doing it. I had the video up on my laptop, and I'm putting all this together, and my dad comes in, and he's just like, he sees the video up on the TV screen, and he tries to help me by pointing things out, like consistency issues or whatever. And he likes to be proud of me, and also like encourage me to think about ways to send things, and it's really adorable. So he'll like point something out and be like, "Oh, look, that door is open, and maybe it was closed in the previous scene. You could write something about that," which is just, it's so sweet.
Nice.
But while he's doing that, I'm writing a dirty joke about this girl's bush.
Yep.
That's where the flute joke comes from too. I know that. See, I know some things that are important. For joining us today on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This is wonderful. This is a great show. I love this show. I listen to it every week.
Oh, cool. If you have one other thing that you want to throw out for Beyond the Sins before you go ahead and do it now. Here's Beyond the Sins.
No.
All right.
So hold on.
I forgot that we had Beyond the Sins, so I just kind of flipped it around. Well, that does it for today's show. Let's reflect, shall we? Knocked it out of the park. Let's just be honest, everybody. I mean, like, whoa. I was so scared. You know, whenever I'm in charge of things, I try to like make sure that the show is moving. And I kind of kept like joking about like pushing and whipping everybody forward. But here's why. I'm supposed to be somewhere in 15 minutes. And I'm still in the studio. Now, where I'm going to go is super, super important. I have a massage scheduled. This is really important for my mental health. It's important for my body. But what am I doing? I'm spending my time having a little post-show moment with you. My friends on the internet. I'd like to hang out with you. Okay, well, that was awkward.